it's Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I felt I would share with you my sort of response to the times we're in, going beyond the initial fears generated from the COVID-19 scenario. I'm now in a situation where I'm not watching TV and I'm going within myself because in order to go within, we can see more. If we keep identifying with the external world and all the fears that are bubbling up, we'll just become more anxious and unhappy. I'm a peacemaker, so my work is about inner and outer peace. So these videos that I'll be doing will be coming from inspiration, as I usually do. I seldom prepare for videos. I don't think I've ever prepared. May have looked at a few things. I've actually pulled a few things together, but I often get inspiration around what I'm to communicate because I'm an intuitive. I'm following my inner feeling. I'm an analyst as well. I've had an economics training and I've been a market analyst for about 10 years. I've travelled extensively around the world. I've been a peace clown. Spent time with Patch Adams, who was demonstrating loving service to humanity through his clowning in various countries. I've had a very wide experience. I'm also a poet. It's like I hear the words I am a this and I am a that, and even that becomes sort of inconsequential in a lot of ways as I start to develop myself spiritually. So who is the big I am? We are very quick in the language to identify with the roles, with what we do, rather than really exploring the most important question, which is who am I? What I do tends to create an identity wrapped around a prescribed role where I might work at something. And I might say, when I was in market research, I could say I'm a market analyst. When I was a public speaker, I could say I'm a public speaker. When I was a world peace clown, I can say I'm a world peace clown. When I studied peace with Rotary overseas, I could say I'm a peacemaker. I had the certificate. But in truth, I'm none of it. I've just had experiences where my focus has been honed in a certain way. The mistake can be in identifying that I'm a this and I'm a that. So in relation to this video, what would I say? I just feel very happy and I want to share the secret of my own success, which is really no secret. It's really about remembering who I am, which has led me on a pathway back to clarity. Typically I go still, so I might just do that just to show you that the way to solve a lot of our problems that we're confronting is really to go within. It's not going to be on the internet, in the books, even in other people's opinions, and that's not to say I don't observe those things, I do. But when I produce something like a video, it's usually coming from, and I should say always coming from within. I'm feeling prompted to do it. So I'll go still to start with. So you just breathe in and breathe out. It would be more accurate for me to say that my desire is to bring peace to others through their empowerment. It's also true to say that I'm not a great believer in that you should do as I say and then follow the peace plan, so to speak. Peace is an inside job and you really have to follow your own inner feeling. You either resonate or you don't, and what that means is you either feel pulled towards what I'm saying or you don't. And there may well be beliefs that shut that down based on very deeply believed ideas that you've been taught, or it could be that you're to go in another direction. So I'm not into wanting a great following, although if people resonate with this, then by all means share it. But ultimately, you can only find your own truth through yourself. And I came to my many inspirations really through a desire to know the truth. I didn't really want to follow. I just wanted to know what was true. So I thought I might start this video by looking at Buckminster Fuller. And I'm actually going to read you out some poems that I wrote because they're pretty pertinent to the times we're in. I am going to make a series out of this because I feel such peace and such joy that it really has to be shared. And yet I can go outside my door, given the pandemic fears, and you can see people are unhappy and they're stuck, they feel. I don't feel stuck. I don't feel scared. And I am utilising this time as a gift given to me to focus on what I love the most, which is peace. I could have gone off down the track of more research into world affairs, and the temptation was really there. But I've actually turned my boat around and I've decided what's really needed right now is an understanding of peace. I'll go still from time to time because I'm listening inwardly. I'm not hearing words or anything, but I go into inner feeling. It's hard to explain. I'll try and explain it. I'm just so used to following intuition, and I just naturally will go inward. It's very easy for me now because I've been doing it for years. When I was in the business world, I'd be listening to colleagues. I identified as a market analyst my whole life, and world was all about analysis. And I had no time for any of this, which was my true calling. I actually dreamed I was teaching peace in 1998, and that's when my market research world pretty much dissolved. I left it, and I was working for myself for many years too. So another world emerged, and it was a world that was far less certain. I had a world where partner went, money went, uncertainty became normal, and I was someone who always had answers. I was an analyst, wasn't I? My job was to find out and get the facts on things, and then I was guiding business. So when this dream happened, it's like my whole reality changed, and it literally was a shift in consciousness. To my amazement, I wasn't seeking it. I dreamed I was teaching peace, and that's what pretty much prompted me down this pathway. But it wasn't something I consciously thought about. I didn't think, I think I'll go and look for something new. It came to me, and that's something to bear in mind. The path reveals itself. I'm thinking and reflecting a lot on what has been termed the way and the life. We're in Easter right now, so this is the time of Jeshua Ben Joseph, or Jesus, people call this amazing human who walked our planet full of joy. He wasn't depressed, you might note. He was teaching love, so there has to be some truth in that. So for all those who are the follower of Jesus, just bear in mind whether you're in judgment, bear in mind whether you are in fear, bear in mind whether your love is conditional on people agreeing with you or not agreeing with you, or the Bible. Jesus was around prior to the Bible, and he wasn't religious. He wasn't. He went and sat with the Essenes. He learned from various teachers. He was on his own path. He was to demonstrate the way and the life. And if you felt resonance with that, he said, come and follow me, come and be with me. And of course, people did. There have been many who have walked the earth with this awakening, this awareness. He was awakened. And what the awakening really is about is just to know thyself and be true. That's it. You just find it, you're just realizing who you are. because we're taught many things which can take us away from who we are and what we really love, because you've got to be practical, get a job. These are the mantras that have been sent to us. Do the right thing, make your parents proud, or you get heaps of pressure from your parents. You've got to work in accountancy or be a lawyer or a doctor. All these same things that have been spoken about. But no one, or seldom, do people say to their kids, what is it that you love? Follow that. And I feel to sort of talk about Arkane. Her name's Arkane, Arkine. She was a young girl, a prodigy, a painter. And she was painting pictures at like 5 years old, which were just remarkable. She had a gift. She was gifted. And her mother quit her job to actually support her daughter and homeschool her because she was gifted. This girl drew Jesus. She was moved from the inner world, definitely moved. Her paintings she had never seen. She was a young girl. So she was demonstrating that this idea of, the word heaven is there, but I kind of feel to expand on that. What is heaven? I might just go still for a minute. Peace. Heaven on earth is peace on earth. It's the same thing. What is peace? Balance. What is balance? Harmony. It's balancing the yin and the yang, the dark and the light element, because it's in everybody. The moment you go into judgment, that's a bit of darkness in you projecting out into the world. When I say the word projection, the analogy typically used is like a camera that's projecting onto a screen. So you've been to a movie theatre, you've got the camera that's projecting the images onto a screen. But when we're watching the movie, we're really believing those images are real, because our minds are perceptual. They're not actually factual, where we can easily be lulled into a sense of perception. And we're perceiving something and feeling it emotionally and then believing it's true. And that's how we wire the neural networks in the brain. If we go through these processes enough, they can condition our thinking. If you keep being told this is true, this is true, this is true, eventually you'll believe it's true. It's just the nature of the neural networks and patterns in the brain. So when we project onto something, we really believe it's true. It's really true. And then the film stops if we're in the movie theatre. And you go, oh, it's only a film. I really got into that. It felt real. I was really scared. You can also look at life in the same way, frame by frame. But we're the ones colouring the frame based on what we've been taught. So a lot of the teachers, a lot of these peaceful teachers were not dwelling on the past. They are actually typically living in the moment, because reality is where it is. And we can so easily miss the moment because we're so caught in our thoughts. I was walking on a mountain yesterday, and, I've heard people walking past me talking about other people. And you can see, I could even see in my own mind, I was dwelling on things from the past. And then I stopped myself and went, stop. Look at the nature you're in. You're forgetting where you are. Look how beautiful this is. And I saw Kookaburra. I saw an amazing moth too that was exactly like a leaf. It landed on the ground and you could so not see it. The only reason I saw it is because I saw it land there. And it had really bright sort of wings underneath, like they were yellow, really bright sort of yellow gold. So when it flew, you saw these flashes of yellow. It was amazing. But on the surface of the moth, it looked like bark. It looked like a bit of lichen actually on its back. It blended perfectly with the leaves. It's amazing. And I thought, how intelligent is this nature? So we live in our stories. We project our reality. We are indoctrinated by other people's beliefs, which we think are real. A lot of the teachers are talking about reality as living in the moment of now, right now, if I'm to bring up the coronavirus, which is bloody always talked about, there is none. Where I am right now, there is none. The reality for me, I'm well, I'm happy. It's not an issue, and it's not even in my world because I haven't turned the television on. I've actually packed it away where I'm staying. Not interested. Got the point, heard the story, felt the fear, and I've made a deliberate choice not to join them in all that, because I know that we create our future, and I know that peace is the way, inner peace is the way, and you'll see a whole different reality, which is why I turned the television off. My reality changed immediately. And yes, I'll observe the rules because that's what makes people feel peace in this moment, but I'm not going into that fear. I'm going into love. So this is Easter. My point that I raised was Jeshua, Jesus. I don't think Jesus would have been paranoid about this virus. If anything, he would have been, blessed are the peacemakers, he would have been on a hill somewhere trying to talk to people, but then he would have been in trouble for not socially distancing. I wonder what he would have done. I just want to go still for a moment because I just find it all amusing. What would the great teachers have done? Okay, see, I happen to have a book here. Isn't that funny? I was going to read you out of this, and then I suddenly get the feeling to pull this. This is my book, which I call Love. And many won't believe it, but it's actually from this great teacher. This was actually channeled by a guy called John Mark Hammer, who was a Vietnam veteran. Over a period of around 17 years, he had a co-collaboration with Jesus. I interviewed him on radio when I was doing Bridges to Peace many years ago. He had a very soft voice. He was a very interesting guy. So he'd gone from war to peace. And he had produced The Way of the Heart, The Way of Transformation, and The Way of Knowing. These were the teachings. Now, I've just felt to read out of this book. So it's going to be in a fairly religious sort of language because it's been channeled. So just give me a sec. I'm just going to grab my coffee, which I love. I actually like the taste of coffee. I like the bitter bit. I don't know. That's me. Or is it? It's probably not. It's probably my addiction. Oh, well. Okay. I'll look at that later when I do the work of Byron Katie. So let's go here because that's where I'm being pulled. And that's how I live in the flow. I just want to premise this before I go here. A lot of the teachers are talking about going into the flow. It's like we get in our boat, you know, and what we typically do, because it's going to make everything happen, we're going to force this world into our design, our shape. It's going to become a this, it's going to become a that. And so we row, or we will try and force our boat to go upstream. And it's hard work. And we all go, yeah, hard work's good for you. You know, you got to work really hard to get what you want. But many of the teachers are saying, no, you turn the boat around, you go with the stream. And that stream for some is called the stream of well-being. It's going with the flow. It's actually not hard work life. And work might be hard, but life is not. Life has its own blueprint. Work is coming out of an economic system which wants to produce more product or services in order to maximize profit. The natural world is completely different. The natural world is in harmony with the whole. The economic world is actually at odds with itself, and you'll find they're all pulling in different directions. Look at the countries all competing. We've got the China-US trade war, smart cities trying to implement all that, and then we've got, you know, do we go with the Chinese frequency? Do we go with the US frequency, which is the waves, the sub-9? So nonetheless, this is competition, which has been touted as a great thing because it brings out the best in us, does it? what it ends up doing is we end up, there's a very good image in conflict resolution of donkeys, and the donkeys are pulling against each other to get to the grass, but they're usually pulling in opposite directions. This is when we're in conflict. And then the donkeys clearly evolve and they decide to cooperate. So they can, because when they're pulling either way, they're actually not maximizing what they can get because they're pulling each other off track, But when they made a decision to cooperate, then they both go towards the grass together and they eat together. So it's a little bit like the sum of the parts is the whole. When you're competing, you're looking for a slice, and that can be a wafer. We actually used to call it in economics a market wafer, where you're going for a slice of that market. Others are trying to dominate or monopolize that market. We have monopolies, which is total control. Government monopolies used to be telecommunications. Then we had duopolies, where you might have too big. The airline industry was a good example here in Australia. Back in my day, we had Ansett and TAA. We had two airlines. One was private, one was public. And today, of course, we can see there's now Virgin. Qantas was around back then. You've got, we've actually trialled many different types of airlines here too, but there's plenty flying in and flying out, so we have a lot more competition. We also have a lot more pollution. So the idea there is we're not going with the flow of the river because economics teaches us to compete, and there is a real theology around that, such as demand and supply. Supposed to, through Adam Smith's rationale, it was supposed to bring the prices down if there was more competition because you had more choice. They had to compete for your dollars, so they would bring their price down. But as we've seen over time, market concentration has happened. Big multinationals are now here. They buy up the chain from the supply, from the very point of, extraction of the resource right to the market. So the retailer or wherever that point of contact is could be website now with the digital world. So competition, we're not going with the flow. We're actually going opposite to what nature is. And some of the teachings say that good luck with that. It'll never work if you're going against nature. You can never win because the natural order is a cosmic order, and universe comes out of that cosmic order. Everything's harmonizing with everything in order for it to have balance. And that's why peace is balance, you see. But we haven't got balance within ourselves, which is why we're often in a lot of discord or in conflict or in fear, because we actually have never been taught to find that natural balance within ourselves, which is fearless. Our true nature is actually peace. People think it's a lofty ideal. It's not. It's actually about remembering who we are. And that sort of brings me to this book, Jeshua, which is one of my teachers. I've had many. So I tend to mix them all up because I'm interested in the truth. So I kind of see it all as leading to the same origin, but it just speaks in different languages. So I'll speak to this one first. Starts off, now we begin. Indeed, as always, greetings unto you, beloved and holy friends. So this is coming from Jesus, or Jeshua Ben Joseph, I call him. And this is coming through a channeled session. So this is not being compiled after his death. This is actually channeled not that long ago. Where are we, 2020? It was around 2004 that I met John Mark Hammer. So I reckon it's been around for about 20 years, this book. We come forth to join with you, and yet we are not apart from where you are. We are not inaccessible to any of God's children. In truth, separation does not exist in all of creation. This can only mean that I am not apart from where you are. And where you are has nothing at all to do with the location of the body that you have learned to call your own. In truth, you are pure spirit. In truth, you are as I am. In truth, that which you are abides throughout all dimensions of consciousness. And consciousness is really about awareness. It's like when you're a child, you're only aware of toys and you're actually not aware of much other than things that are sort of come up front, and you go, oh, that, you start to get, wow, wonder. And then you go and become a teenager, you become aware of more. Girls, boys, your whole world changes, your interests change, your tastes change. You kind of want to go with the crowd, you want to belong. You want to be cool and all those things. Then you become a young adult and you're working, so consciousness changes again. And you become conscious of the world of work. You become conscious of responsibility, that you have tasks to do. You get paid for what you're doing. You go out to nightclubs. You might be playing the field. You might meet a partner. You might get married. And then the next stage is marriage, or it could be just living together or whatever it is. Then you might want to have kids, and that changes consciousness. Then you watch your kids grow up, that changes consciousness. Then you become older, become a grandparent, and consciousness changes yet again. So I'm putting it in that sort of framework so you understand when they talk about dimensions of consciousness, these are actually awarenesses far, far greater than what I've just outlined in respect of a human life. They're awarenesses of things that we don't know at all. So he goes on to say, in truth, that which you are abides throughout all dimensions of consciousness. In truth, that which you are has never tasted separation from God, or whatever you perceive God to be. Could be life. You could change the word God for life. Same thing. There is an aspect of you that has chosen to perceive yourself as identified with the physical body in your third dimensional world called space and time. And I was thinking about this yesterday as I was walking through the forest, how I identify with my body. When you get hungry, I need to eat. I look at my face and say, I'm a Susan. Well, am I? It's like your point of reference. So the ego tends to anchor us very much in who we've been called. Your parents gave you the name and you've been called that ever since. Sometimes you can forget who you are. If something happens very fast, you actually might forget. When you get involved in a task that you really love, you might lose all sense of space and time. So identity can shift. Some people who are meditators, they've had experiences outside of their bodies. I've met some of them, and they were not their body, they realised. I've actually talked about near-death experience in some of my blogs. That changes everything. I interviewed people who died and came back, and I realised that I was not my body, and it was really weird at the time. I remember thinking, because I was awakening, I was just going, oh, there's another world, a spiritual world outside of me. It was a bit weird at first because I remember thinking, that means they know my thoughts. Ooh. Again, no privacy, which I really, I like my privacy. But I guess in the spiritual world, there is none. So and I mean, I got used to it after a time and just realised that all my thoughts are known. It was very interesting. So I'll read on. He says, or it says, it's in the non-physical now, there is an aspect of you that has chosen to perceive yourself as identified with the physical body in your third dimensional world called space and time. This is a part of the experience you have created and thus called to yourself. But when I speak of self, I speak not of the self, which is the dream of the body, the self that you have identified yourself with. Rather, I speak of the self that transcends all limitation and exists in all dimensions. So what's being said here is that we are not our physical body and that we actually are existing without limitation. There's no limit to who we are in truth. And we're existing in all these dimensions, and we don't consciously know of that as we talk and live and breathe in this, you could call this dimension, okay? This is the third dimension. Beloved friends, by way of introduction to that which we will be speaking until in the next 12 lessons, called the way of transformation, rest with this simple truth. At no time are you imprisoned within the body. At no time are you limited to the appearance that you have come to believe is you. No matter how deep the pain, no matter how certain you have been of what you call your common sense telling you, I am here, I am this body, this moment is happening, this is all there is, regardless of all of that, the truth is not shaken. You are not the mere appearance of the body-mind that you have called the self. I've had this confirmed, and as I do more series, you'll get to see that this is actually a universal truth. Now, with the simple point, I'll reread that. Now, with that simple point as a foundation, we can begin. Beloved friends, the way of transformation rests on exactly the same thing that all of your dreams rest upon, the decision concerning what you would be committed to. I'm going to comment as I go through because I've had recent thoughts about this commitment, because I was thinking about what am I committed to, and it's always, certainly since I dreamed I was teaching peace, it was peace. But then sometimes I get distracted into doing research because I want to find out things. But what am I really committed to? Committed to inner peace is what I'm really committed to. And that's why I'm starting to work more and more on these higher teachings, because it's really about coming to peace with who you are, which is actually an emptiness within. It's not an emptiness in that you need to fill the gap. It's more fullness. I'm just going into my feeling because I do know the feeling. You actually feel complete. You're not blocking inspiration by going, no, that's not true, I'm going to ignore that. I'm very open, so I tend to allow myself to be guided, if you like. And it's not that someone's guiding me, it's more that I'm getting impulses to go in certain directions, like doing this today. So I just go, okay, I'll just do that. I have no idea what I'll be doing from, 1 hour to the next. I just follow the feeling. So what are we committed to is the key question here. For you cannot dream a dream, that is, you cannot create an experience in the field of consciousness without being 100% committed to it. So whatever you're believing you're committing to. It may appear that this is not the case, but I assure you that it is. This means that in every moment of your lived experience, what you are aware of is wholly uncaused by anything outside of yourself. Now, this is where I wanted to get to today, because I've been listening to other teachers this morning, and they're all saying exactly the same. You are the creator of your reality. End of story, literally. And of course, we can say, no, I'm not. I didn't create the coronavirus. That's a good one. Well, at a higher level, you've created the circumstances that are going to put you into a space of possible poverty. You can't leave your place unless you've got 4 reasons. And you're believing that there's a pandemic and we all have to do it. It's worldwide and it's collapsing the economy, and that's where the great fears are. So I'll read that to you again. This is what he says. This means that in each moment of your lived experience, what you are aware of is wholly uncaused by anything outside of yourself. How interesting is that? As you read these words, for example, if you limit yourself to being only the body, receiving a certain frequencies of vibration, touching your eyes and creating a certain neurological stimulus within the brain, and translating that vibration into certain words of your English language, that experience is not caused by anything outside of yourself. I know people will have trouble with that, and they'll say, hang on a sec. I learned English. We're going, that's not true. What's this frequency stuff? I'm just thinking how to translate that. We see in certain frequencies too, like we see, hear, and smell. A dog, for example, would see, smell, and hear different frequencies. That's why you have certain whistles you can't hear, but dogs can hear it. They're hearing a different frequency. If you go to your radio band, you move up the frequency, hertz, you're moving up frequency, or you're moving down frequency. What they say is that when we can see our physical world around me, so I can see the cupboard behind me, I can see my suitcase, I can see the light. This is all vibrating at the same frequency. It's why I can see it. But I've definitely seen an apparition or a ghost, and I remember that. And my friend was with me who saw the same thing, so this wasn't imagined. And it was like a shadowy thing, but I saw a jumper and pants, but I could put my arm through that apparition. I was too shocked at the time to think like that, but that apparition was not solid. It was a presence. And I think too, I felt my father. I get sometimes shadows at the corner of my eyes, and I think it might be my dad because he died last year. I wonder. But nonetheless, this is frequency. So that apparition is of a much, much higher frequency, because as you go higher in frequency, it becomes more transparent. And interdimensional will be even more higher frequency that you can't see it at all. I mean, this type of thinking can go, it can go in such a direction you just go, what? That does my head in. It takes time to get used to this sort of thinking. Anyway, he goes on to say, you are equally and infinitely free in this very moment as you contemplate these words to experience this transmission of vibration in a wholly different way. Beyond your language, you are free to perceive yourself from the realms of pure spirit. You are free to see me and those who join with me as we transmit this frequency that creates the vibration through your physical form. Then an exercise here is provided to expand awareness. Here is a simple exercise. Take just a moment and within your consciousness drop this simple pebble. I am not what I have perceived myself to be. I am unlimited, pure spirit, and nothing is unavailable to me. Therefore, in this moment, I choose to open access to other dimensions of experience so that I might call this moment to me in a different way. Now, I can probably speak to that. With the coronavirus, again, I'm not tuning into laptops or television. And so I'm only really bringing that up because I know everybody's into it. But for me, in the space that I'm living in right now, it doesn't even cross my mind. Only in this video is it crossing my mind. So in other words, it's not an issue for me. I'm not in a pandemic crisis. It only becomes somewhat of a thought form when I go to the shopping centre and I see everybody wearing masks. I go, wow, right. But I'm not seeing anyone coughing. And then, of course, the countering view there will be, well, they could be carriers. And then I hear the words of the Prime Minister, it's a mild virus. So I go with him. It's not going to kill everybody. But the fear of this is the true virus, in my view. People are frightened of dying. And maybe reading this for you is to help you to see that you're unlimited as a spirit. So therefore, in this moment, I choose to open access to other dimensions of experience. So for me, it's peace is the other dimension that I'm opening to. Peace meaning I am spirit, I am the creator of my reality, I am intending the life that I choose, I'm going with the flow of my life, I'm not in fear. So I'm calling this, this time, if you like, to me in a different way. It becomes an opportunity for me to teach peace. Because that's what I realised. I stopped doing the research and I just went, I need to be teaching peace now because the people are going to need it. So that's what happened to me. Jeshua says, as the words are spoken, notice what images begin to come into the field of awareness and perhaps imagine yourself to be far more than just a body, abiding in a far greater dimension than the physical dimension. Do you see fleeting images of other beings, colours of light, subtle feelings that perhaps you had not been aware of while you were focusing on the English translation of the vibrations? What do you notice drifting through the field of your awareness? Pay attention to it. If you cannot imagine what you have not or are not experiencing. Now, that obviously didn't happen for me. Feelings I had was more to do with my own life in respect of peace. So I am unlimited pure spirit and nothing is unavailable to me. Let's go there. So I guess what I'm saying is that we're not bounded by the body. I can go anywhere in the universe if I choose to. Or I can travel across Melbourne in my mind, you know. That's what I saw. You are a field of consciousness having that experience now. You create the capacity. You decide what will enter into the field of your awareness and how you will experience it. Beloved friends, learn to look beneath the scenes. Learn to feel beyond the body. Learn to allow yourself awareness of what steals across the metaphorical corner of your eye. That is the outer edges of your field of awareness. As I said, I'm noticing that, just sort of a little shadow. I mean, sure, you probably would have at times thought, oh, someone there, and there's no one there. That's what it means about noticing what goes across the corner of your eye, the outer edges. We get a feeling. Come to realise that the experience you're most familiar with, that is, of being a body, mind who reads or listens to words which are vibrations of sound, translates them into English or another language, and therefore perceives that you are having a conversation with one being who happens to be another body, is a very limited perception. It's like a little bit like when someone dies and you start talking to them, like my father. I talk to him. Whenever I look at his picture, I cry. I can't believe it, how much I loved him. But I know that my father's alive on the other side. I know that he is because I have felt that come across the corner of my eye, that feeling that he's there. And my wheel's still on my car. He's the one that fixed my wheel. He put, you may laugh, my father, home handyman. He wasn't trained as a mechanic, but he used to do it. And when I was delayed last time I saw him, which was October last year, and earlier, September, October, because my mother kindly offered to have my car serviced because I didn't have any money. I've been without a home for many years and no money. And when it went to the mechanic he was shocked. He said that he even took footage of the wheel and he showed me. He said, see how the wobbly the wheel is? He said, if you'd hit a bump, you would have lost it. And I had a friend with me at the time and she's spiritual and she was praying over the car. And I remember laughing, thinking, oh, I never do that. But she did because I was taking her somewhere. And blow me down. It wouldn't surprise me if her prayer helped. But anyway, we did go on rough road and it could have come off at any time, but it didn't. So they were charging $3,000 for the mechanic and I have no money. My mother doesn't have that sort of money. My father doesn't. I come from a middle-class family. Anyway, my father rang the mechanic to find out what had happened. And he told me to, and this is what I like about my dad, he said, drive the car to my place, even though he knows the wheel could fall off. Fearless, just get in the car and drive it over. So, and he's got a little makeshift ramp. And I'm thinking, how's he going to get it up that? And he actually, I don't think he did. He must have, I don't know how he did it, because he did it without me being there. And he told me later that he had glued it. I don't know what he did to that wheel assembly. And I still remember my father jumping on the suspension of my car with that wheel and bouncing it a few times. He goes, oh, it feels pretty solid. He said, I didn't sleep all last night. And that wheel, it's now been 6 months after my dad passed away. That wheel is still on the car, and I've told him he's got to be my angel mechanic, to look after my wheel. And we have a miracle happening. It's still on. So, it was a miracle that happened when I was there, because it made me stay longer, and Dad and I had more time, because we don't really spend a lot of time together. And that was when he told me he loved me. He gave me a hug, told me. And I had a friend with me, and I said to her, wow, that's big that my father's just done that. And I knew he loved me, but it was never easy with Dad. Like most men, they're not good at expressing how they feel. And he's still figuring out things himself, because he had a difficult life. But there were miracles that happened between he and I, and he got me to scrape off all my stickers on my car. And I could have protested that and said, no, that's my expression, but I didn't. I just scraped it all off. And he said, oh, you did a good job. I went, thanks. And another breakthrough I had with him was, he said something to put me, he actually put me down as a female. And I didn't even think about it. I just brushed it off. But to my amazement, this is the first time ever, he came back to me and he said, I just want to apologise for what I said to you. I said, oh, don't worry, Dad, I didn't, doesn't matter. He goes, no, it's, he was recognising misogyny in himself. And that was the first time he'd ever apologised to me, because he'd put me down in the past, So it's not easy being a woman. People think, oh, yeah, they're carrying on about it. No, we're not. Come and stand in my shoes. You're not seen as capable, equal to a man. It's like there's huge issues around this. Again, the identity of female, male, yet we're all got great capacity. We're intelligent beings. We can do anything. In Russia, they've got female cosmonauts, female mechanics here. So clearly it's not a problem. We can do it. But the barrier to it is this identity that females should be a certain way. And I just felt to bring that up because it came to me to do so, because I'm in the flow. That's why I often can go off on a few trajectories but come back. So I'll read on. What Jeshua's saying here is, recognise that around the edges of that perception, there is something far more vast, something which can be cultivated that allows you to be aware of much more refined levels. This is why stillness is often, you've got to go still to feel it. The edges of consciousness, the edges of awareness. I can go outside of this room. I can go into the forest where I'm near. Consciousness is vast. Eventually, you'll be able to perceive these dimensions of energy with your eyes open. As you look upon another body, mind, he calls it, who is currently having the experience of vibrating thoughts through it directed toward you. So somebody's thinking about you. And it could be in a conversation. So they're thinking about you, they're talking to you. You will see that the other being, not as a body, but as a field of light. Wow, imagine that in your own family. Can you look at them not as your family member, but as a spiritual, unlimited being of light? You will see colours. Okay, this is when you're really highly developed. I have friends who can see the colours. They call it auras. I can't see that at this point. You will feel vibrations. Well, I'm just imagining looking at someone. You will feel vibrations. Okay, and those colours and those vibrations will tell you much more than the words could ever say to you. So whatever they're saying to you, you're going beyond those words. The result, of course, is that you will not be fooled by words nearly as often as you have been in the past. Intuition can be like that too, where you're sensing they're not telling me the truth. And I'll just tell you straight up what came into my mind just then was when I went to a place called Bollingen in Zurich, in Switzerland. I went to Carl Jung's castle, he called it. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychoanalyst. He was a contemporary of Freud. And I got very interested in his metaphysics. I found his book, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. So I ended up going to the place he built. The tower that he built it was like a castle. So the tower was in the middle, and you can imagine the walls around it. The walls were kind of like protecting the tower, which was the ego. So he had built out of bluestone a castle which he had created similar to the ego, but in physical form. Now, the reason that came to my mind was that I went there with my husband, and my mother and stepfather were in the caravan outside the property. I went onto the property, and a guy came with some dogs, Maltesian dogs, and he had spoken with my mother. And he came up, and I said to him, I said, and who are you? And he goes, the caretaker of this property. And my inner intuitive feeling, I looked beyond those words, and I knew he was the grandson of Carl Jung. So that was coming up in my mind, I knew, and I was right, because I went into Carl's bibliography and I saw the grandson there. So Jeshua goes, practice this little exercise as often as you choose in any and all circumstances. It is not difficult. You simply use the field of your consciousness to decide to be aware of what is around the edges of third-dimensional experience you are having. For instance, when you are in your automobile or car and you pull up to a red light, as you sit next to another automobile with a driver, look over through the physical eyes. That person won't look back, they'll just be looking straight ahead. If you limit yourself, you will see an automobile, or just say car, with a person sitting behind a wheel, similar to what your body, or what you call your body, is doing. What if you allowed yourself to play? I like that one. By looking at the being and saying within the mind, this is but one small expression of that being. I wonder what's occurring around the edges. So looking across and seeing what's occurring around the edges. You might surprise yourself when suddenly a thought comes into your consciousness. You know that thought is not yours. Well, I've had that many times. It could be the thought of the person in the car saying, my God, why didn't I iron my husband's shirt this morning? Oh, what was I saying about misogyny? Sorry, that's the thought around my edges, or the edges around my thought. Oh, he's going to be so angry. I'll try not to cringe. That's funny, actually. How many times have thoughts like that entered your mind? Never. And you have dismissed them as imagination. No, I haven't. I just haven't gone there. He irons his own shirt. But you get the point of what Jeshua was saying. Probably not a good example. But anyway, so he's able to read the thoughts of the person that they drop into his mind. Interesting character, hey? What we are suggesting here is to use the most extraordinary moments of your day to become aware of your own being, your own naturally expanded, unlimited self. There is nothing hidden at any time. In any moment, you have full access to the totality of another soul. See, that to me is really interesting. I've never been able to tap in fully to someone else, but I can tap in, and I do get sensations. I get senses. Those who've been watching my videos know that's true. I've even cried when I've tuned into someone. So we are more than we know. And how is it possible that I can tune into someone? And I'm not tuning into them all the time. I typically only do it when I'm doing the videos. Privacy, you know. And because I'm following the flow, I just go with whatever comes. This is interesting. This is interesting. Does that sound like an invasion of privacy? He'll tell me off now. Beloved friends, there is no such thing. Privacy is important only for those who believe they are cut off and separate. So I might have to work on that one, don't I? And perhaps have something to hide. What do I have to hide? It's not that I have anything to hide. I just want to sit with that. No, it's more that I haven't given permission. I'm thinking obviously of the cameras and just the fact that we're being recorded and the algorithms on phones. And, I just don't want my if I have a chat with my friend, predominantly it's because, the discussion I might have could be misconstrued because I know they're not analysts. And because people are into adversarial, whatever, they can take parts of a person's conversation and then they can say, there are this, there are that, and justify more surveillance. That's what my concern is. Of course, we've got nothing to hide, but not everybody understands. And I'm just talking about human beings here. Jeshua's talking about the fact that on a spiritual level, nothing's hidden. And that's true. Like I opened this conversation with, you realise it's all glass houses, and that's a different thing because I see them as loving. And I took time to get used to this idea of all thoughts being known. But I feel more trust in it because I consider those of that higher awareness to be safe in a way. Whereas, with human beings, you can't always trust what they're doing because they're operating out of fear quite often. That's why I like privacy, because I don't trust those who are doing the analysis will do it accurately and are doing it in the highest good, because a profit motive is sitting there. I know that it'll distort people's rights and freedoms because there's an agenda at play. So that's why I feel that. So what Jeshua is saying is, as you come to trust that the deep nature of your own being is perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, and perfect love, you'll begin to release the fear that you've built up around the extraordinary skills that you already possess. You will discover that you can trust your unlimited spirit. So as you sit in your car looking at the one behind the wheel of the car next to you, and you allow yourself to relax and notice what is around the edges as it touches your consciousness, you will realize that yours is touching theirs, and you are free to send them love. So even in this time of isolation, sort of public distancing, you can send love to people, and I've done that many times. Just send them love. They may not know, but on a higher level they know. If you've got people you're separated from and you really want to see them, just send them love. Just imagine them and send love to them, and they will receive it. You are free to notice what you pick up from another, and without opening the physical mouth, you can send the answer of wisdom that they are seeking. So that's how beautiful this soul is. I'll leave it there. And it's really funny. My dad's picture was underneath the book. It's my dad. Now, because I'm in the flow, I didn't realise that was sitting under the book, even though I'd put it there to flatten it, because it got a bit bent in my car. I had a little altar in my car with my dad there. And every time I look at him, I feel such a love for him. He was a great dad. So I've talked a bit about him in this video on the last time we saw each other. So see, I would see that as Dad sending me a sign, definitely, because of him telling me that he loved me. That cry scene. It's amazing. See, the love is so strong when you lose someone, but they're not gone. And that's what Jesus is teaching here. And it is Jesus. I know it is. There'll be people who have the Bible and say it's a this or it's a that competition. It's not. Truth is truth. You find it in the Bible, you'll find it in other texts, you'll find it in your own self. It's just whether you want to tune in to what feels right. Now, Dad's picture, that's him telling me that he's with me. Definitely. Because I didn't even notice it there before. Confirmation. And that's how I'm living now. It's like I'm not frightened of these things that are coming around our world. I'm not. Because I know that we're far more than we think we are. We have the power to create great change on the planet, but we have to know thyself and be true. We have to start weeding that garden of all the negativity that has been planted. Now, if you keep putting yourself in front of negative images, negative television, you will become more fearful, and it wires the neural network in the brain. You have to find a sacred, quiet space like I've done, and you have to allow yourself to find what makes you truly happy. So use the time wisely where you're stuck at home or whatever it is you think. Use that time and create that space for yourself. Just tell the family or whoever you're with, your partner, I just need to have a few hours alone, light a candle, and ask to be shown the way to peace. I did it many years ago, but I dreamed I was teaching peace, which took me down this trajectory. And it's been a long road for me, like I'm talking 20 years. This was 1998, so it's 22 years that I have been walking down this pathway. And it's a complicated, it's an involved subject matter. It is. There's a lot to it, and there's many teachers in it. So I've kind of been looking across a range of teachers that I feel resonance with. Byron Katie is one, definitely the work, and that will help you with inquiry. I'll attach the worksheets to this video. Abraham is another, the law of attraction. What you think about, you bring about. So it's about self-mastery. It's about becoming aware of what you've been taught to think. And if it's not feeling good, if it feels really negative, if it feels really scary, you're not in alignment with your own inner truth. Because once you start to align with peace or inner truth, the fears fall away. Because I'm becoming my own, in a sense, authority, if I can use that word. It's probably not the right word, but I listen to myself. I'm self-determining. I trust myself. I hear what's being said outside, and if I don't resonate, or if I can see what the outcome of those narratives are, if it's creating more social division or fear in the community or depression, anxiety, I know that it's not in alignment with truth. It's not in alignment with peace. The peacemaker would not divide the society. The peacemaker would say this is an opportunity for you to create peace in the family. This is an opportunity for you to start to think about your own life. This is a time of meditation or a time of prayer for some. It's a time of self-reflection. It really is, and it's an opportunity that's been given all of us. Given that it's a mild virus that we're dealing with, it doesn't take out every life. The spread of it is what the pandemic's about. It's not about the virus itself. It's not like the plague, bubonic plague that they had in London. It's not the same thing. It's about protecting, obviously, the vulnerable with compromised immune systems. So care and love towards those. It's about well-being. It's about boosting your own immune system. And that's really what it's about. It's a great teacher on a lot of levels. I mean, if you fall into the fear of it all, you're just going to be worried about touching this and that. You can't be living in that sort of fear, particularly when it's a mild virus and most people are fine. It's like you have to know that. And if you do have fears, use the work of Byron Katie and start questioning your own inner fears. So look, there's many teachers. You may have a Bible, you might be a Buddhist, you might be a philosopher, you might be an accountant or a lawyer or someone. Go to whatever resonates for you, and that will be your pathway. So I'm really just, really probably jumping in the deep end there with Jeshua or Jesus. But I really felt pulled to that then. That's why I told you it. And I have to trust that over being judged or anything like that. Can't worry about those things. So I'm going to leave you with that as a starting point. Your spirit is unlimited. You're not actually limited in your house. You have unlimited possibilities. What you think about, you bring about. What you put yourself in front of, you brainwash yourself. If you keep allowing repetitive whatevers into your consciousness, it will eventually program you. If you want to be free, you have to start to go your own way. By all means, take on board what's being stated. Sift for truth or an untruth in it, but follow yourself, because your intuition will tell you. Your emotions will tell you. If you're feeling discord, then you're out of alignment with what's true. And if you want to know more about that, you have to look into the reality. The reality is what's happening right now. It's not about the future or the past. Byron Katie can give you more information on that. How do you know you need a situation? It's there. How do you know you don't need it? It's not there. How do you know you need money? It's there. How do you know you don't need it? It's not there. Same applies for work. How do you know you need work? It's there. How do you know you don't? It's not there. Because you're the creator of all of it. It comes from within, as Jesus was saying in the beginning. Everything comes from inside us. Now, you can think that that's an untrue statement, but I ask you to investigate. Is it true? Take care. Much love and much peace. Bye.